Welcome to the 360 Pulse podcast, the show where we explore the latest innovations in immersive technology, real-time situational awareness, and the future of panoramic imaging. I am your host, Jennifer Sertle, VP of Marketing at Circle Optics, where our mission is to deliver situational intelligence for a safer, smarter, more immersive world. Today, I'm really thrilled to bring a guest back whose leadership and clarity continues to inspire our team. We first met Jacqueline Blackburn over 2 years ago through the Defense Innovation Unit, and she'll tell you about that in a little bit. But I want to let you know is that what she does is she leads the portfolio Decisive Point, where she supports some of the most promising ventures at the intersection of national security and deep tech. She's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, where she led and deployed teams in the Naval Explosive Ordnance Disposal Community, managing no-fail missions across the Middle East and Africa. And before joining Decisive Point, she was an investor at Scout Ventures and previously helped scale JP Morgan's early stage technology and disruptive commerce practice, working directly with founders and navigating the growth paths. I love the fact that you have a background in industry and in defense. And so your credibility is incredible. And I really, I am going to tie in our last program because I loved all the things that you talked about in terms of teamwork. But right now we're really working on accelerating innovation. So I'm going to start with, well, actually, what leadership lessons have become important since the last 2 years? Is there anything else that you've noticed because you've been working with so many different teams?
Yeah, I would say in general, the first thing I've learned is that, so I would say the last couple of years, I've spent a lot of time in kind of this listening mode and learning a lot from like government contracting, from talking to founders, from learning from my teammates. And now I've kind of like seen myself grow into the person people are asking questions to. And so it's now my responsibility passing down information that I've learned. So I think it's something I think that I've grown, from is just being able to pay it forward and be a good mentor to like my teammates, as well as some of the companies we're working with. And then I would say too, like, it's interesting, like reflecting on my role as a leader in the civilian world versus my role as a leader in the military. And I think that like what I've learned is that time is generally on our side in the civilian world. And like really at the end of the day, nothing's that serious where it's like life or death. There's very few situations where it's that intense. Unlike in, a combat situation where maybe that is the case. So I definitely see that kind of shift in mindset, into my civilian career. I think generally though, we've grown as a team, over the years. And so being able to see, and utilize my experience in helping that growth has been really cool, to watch and to also learn and to share and pass down that knowledge to some of my younger teammates.
And you are really agile and you're used to sometimes changing directions pretty quickly. Are there any personal habits that you can share about how you manage navigating complexity and managing, how quickly we have to shift our priorities these days?
Yeah. I think in terms of like the way I'm seeing, private sector and government intermingle, I think it's really important to be patient, and expect that things will change along the process and, always have kind of contingency plans, even if like your original plan doesn't, come through. And I think things don't always necessarily get done on the timeline you think. And so I think it's just important to recognize that, sometimes the government doesn't move as fast as the private sector. But if you have that patience, you can, and kind of resilience, you can, achieve anything, even if it might be a different timeline than what you originally expected.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you for that. And we, as a company, we are 2 years further along and we have our very first working with a prime. We're now working with L3 Harris, which is really exciting. And so my questions are a little bit selfish in that I'm really excited for our audience to hear some things that we really want to learn about. So for early stage dual use startups like Circle Optics, how should the mindset shift as they move from seed funding to preparing for a Series A? We at Circle are preparing for a Series A.
Yes, I would say it's really what you see is this transition from proving your technical viability to demonstrating kind of a scalable and repeatable solution and having that traction to support it. I think there's a mindset shift from like product centric to solution oriented. And I think the technology should clearly align with real operational needs that have been validated both commercially and in the defense landscape.
Okay. So I think that we are still kind of talking about our capabilities from an internal, how did we build it versus how is it used? Have there been any good examples, or is there any way you can give us advice on how to make that shift to really be operational centric for the user's sake?
Yeah, I would say making sure that you're really listening to the end user's feedback and iterating quickly and updating that your product to support their most pressing needs, and being able to do that process, rinse, repeat very quickly, helps you get validation in real world operational environments, and just finding opportunities to do that again and again, I think will continue to help improve your track record.
That's really helpful. And you see companies at all stages, from iterating ideas to actually being at the seed round to actually being able to get their Series A. What are some distinct things that really indicate the fact that the company is really Series A ready versus just operating as a seed company?
Yeah, I mean, I think outside of AAR and product milestones, which are fairly self-explanatory, I think companies that are kind of truly ready for that Series A have a clear understanding of the defense acquisition pathway. I think they have evidence of stakeholder engagement, whether that's through pilots and demonstrations, so kind of like we previously talked about, being able to iterate quickly, being able to provide a product for the end user and ultimately for the customer who's going to be purchasing that. And then they've also built a team with sales cycle and strategic communication experience in the national security space. And I think, a combination of both what you can do internally with what you're doing externally from a customer's perspective is what really truly defines a Series A startup from, their previous seed kind of mindset.
And can you introduce your firm and the thesis that you're using for the companies that you're serving right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are an early stage venture capital fund. We focus on seed to Series A investments across the sectors of defense, energy, and infrastructure. Typically we invest in a number of hardware solutions. I'd say that's the majority of our investment portfolio, but we've also done some software plays. I think we really look at the technology in terms of business model from a systems approach perspective, where we're looking at a complete package. It's a very easy way to market that and sell that to the government. So thinking through that business model is really important for companies, especially that want to work in the DoD. So are you an integrator? Are you trying to look to integrate with a bigger system, or are you kind of that system, that full, solution in a box type scenario in terms of like your business model and your approach there. And we have made a number of investments kind of across those sectors. It's been really interesting to see their growth, even, if we come in at the Series A, being able to prepare them for those later stages as well.
Our journey was, as we were getting our camera systems ready, we were working towards that conversation of it should be mission ready. And that's actually what got us to the point to say we're actually an integrator. And the language, how you identify yourself really does matter. And once we started really kind of believing in our worth as an integrated solution, that's what really opened the door to L3 Harris and others. So I really appreciate that level of clarity on really being able to understand who you are, and that if you are developing something that isn't integrated, that it does have to be really mission ready. That's really yes. Absolutely. So what kind of support beyond funding do you think is often the most overlooked from founders trying to scale in the national security ecosystem?
I would say some things that are commonly overlooked, but I think can cause some real pain points for companies, is generally like ATO and security clearances, navigating the regulatory landscape, CMMC and cyber postures. And then I think a lot of folks in this space particularly don't know exactly how to sell to the government and what the right business model looks like for them and their business. So I think a lot of those things, while they may not be on someone's immediate mind as a founder when they're first starting out their business, are very important down the line, particularly as they start identifying key customers and having those engagements. So I think the earlier you can start some of these processes, the better. For some folks, like for instance, if you're looking to integrate with a transition partner or like a defense prime, some of these processes can be expedited or helped through that relationship. For instance, like certain ATO processes may like fall under the umbrella of that prime when you're working with them and engaging with them. So that helps kind of de-risk and help prevent you from, entering that valley of death, so to speak. And so some of those, relationships are very strategic and can help eliminate some of these overlooked, but often very prohibitive processes that companies have to go through.
And that's where it's sometimes when, especially like as a prototype company, we're moving from that. Like if there's no spec, it's really helpful. L3Harris has so many regulatory issues that it really helped us decide what do we need to do to be able to serve them. But it really kind of took us actually having a potential customer for us to get that disciplined about what we needed to do. So that's really helpful. What trends in defense innovation are you watching really closely? Like what's on your emerging technology horizon?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things we're following closely. I think from a policy perspective, we're definitely following the Golden Dome and the AI plan that President Trump has been speaking a lot about. We're definitely following a lot on nuclear policy. We have a couple investments in the space, so following kind of where regulation is going there. I think autonomy broadly, we do have a number of autonomy companies. So where, how folks are integrating AI and some of these autonomous systems and making sure that, the warfighter, I think the military generally, obviously cares a lot about keeping a human in the loop there. But then how do we evolve and adopt some of these technologies, incorporating AI and autonomy while still keeping the decision at the human? And then two other areas we're looking at are critical minerals and rare earths, as well as technologies that kind of support large data centers. So those have been some deep dives we've been doing from a technology perspective, but then also from like a policy perspective and what we're looking in terms of some of the efforts going down within Congress and from the president.
And for people that are trying to kind of keep their how do you learn all the new emerging technologies? What are some of the sources that are important that you think founders should be paying attention to? And it's really hard because as you're building your company, you also have to be forward looking and you have to really know, where the technology is going. Do you give advice around how people can stay current?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, it's a lot of reading and triple checking sources. Like I may read one article, but then I want to backfill it with like maybe some other article that gives me a better sense and a better picture. I tried to obviously there's like LinkedIn, there's Twitter, there's like all of these different types of like sources of information. There's, everyone has a newsletter, there's podcasts, but I really do try to read a diverse number of sources and then gather kind of an opinion based off of all those different sources and perspectives, rather than just relying on maybe one person's opinion in one article, right? That may actually be biased in its own right. So I try to read about at the same topic from a bunch of different sources in order to gather an opinion that I have, right? From that topic.
And do you spend?
And I think things that come out like the, general plans, general executive orders, I try to stay up on those and just make sure I have a good understanding of what's said. And then we also talk about a lot internally as a team and we're constantly kind of sharing information, which I think is super valuable.
That's, yeah. And in terms of just actionable, just anyone listening, if you're on a team, you might even have a segment of your meetings just on what's coming down the horizon or what's interesting that you've read lately. It's almost like we all have to be kind of complex adaptive systems and kind of sharing what we're learning, which is great. I know last time we talked a little bit about reading and leading. And are there any favorite books or anything that you've read recently that you think would be fun for our audience to know?
I'm trying to think. I've been reading a few books, but they've mostly been like fiction beach reads. I would say there's a great book by Mel Robbins I just read, and it's a nonfiction book. It was actually the only nonfiction book I read this year. But it's called The Let Them Theory, and I thought it was a really good book. And so it's a good perspective. She basically came up with this theory about not letting certain aspects of things she can't control her life anymore. And it's really changed her life. And she has a lot of different examples that she provides. So I just think it's a good book to read just to get a different perspective on how someone handles stressful situations or just them decision making things that they have in their life. And so I would highly recommend that book. I think it was just overall a great book. And she also has a podcast, which I've listened to a couple episodes before, and they're not too bad. So I would say that's a good nonfiction book. Other than that, I've just read a bunch of beach reads. I really what's on my list to read this summer is the second Devil Wears Prada book, because the movie's coming out soon. So that's definitely on my list, but that's a fun book.
No, I mean that to be able to navigate complexity and work in all this technology space, being able to have, just joy and having a chance for your brain to relax and also see something that's predictable, because so much in our life is unpredictable. That's really great. And I think agency, I actually also have that book from Mel Robbins and gave it to many people just because it's about agency. And if I think about autonomous systems in this era of AI, it's really important that we think about our own agency in different ways. And so I think that's really even, I do think that there's a business tie-in to that, which is great. I was lucky enough to go visit Jacqueline at her office in New York City in Manhattan recently. I know sometimes you're in Hawaii. What do you have coming down the next 90 days?
Yeah, we're getting ready to launch an accelerator with the Defense Innovation Unit, and the mission partner is INDOPACOM. So it's really exciting. We get to partner with them. There will be a prize challenge associated with the accelerator. So this is the first time we're able to do that. And so that'll be really great for the companies that get selected, and they'll get to go through a hybrid program. So we'll do both in-person events as well as virtual programming. Companies will gain foundational knowledge of working with the government. They'll get to engage directly with different customer groups. They'll get to have the opportunity to demonstrate their technology to a number of different government stakeholders over the course of the program. So it's a really, really great program. It's very focused around the defense market and different end users there. And there will be there will be a focus area for this accelerator, which will be announced shortly, which we're really excited about. So you have to stay tuned for more there. But yeah, we are getting ready to launch that. And so that'll be it'll be a busy fall for us. And we'll plan to go out to Hawaii a couple times for that program.
And will that be announced on the website, where, as we always do, a follow-up blog to this? I'll be able to put a link in so people can be checking when that good news drops. That's so exciting.
We will definitely be announcing it soon. It will be on the DIU website, so diu.mil, as well as the challenges.gov. So the solicitation will actually be out there, so folks can apply directly through that as well.
That's great. You've been listening to Jacqueline Blackburn, principal at Decisive Point, and also one of the best bridge builders between defense and industry that Circle Optics has in our community. And really appreciate you, Jacqueline. And I'd like to express gratitude for our program and thank Scott Fitzgerald at RockVox Studios. We'd also like to thank Institute of Optics, Genius New York, Luminate Accelerator, AFWorks, Cider Technologies, and of course, AUVSI. At Circle Optics, our mission is to deliver situational intelligence for a safer, smarter, more immersive world. And this podcast is one of the ways that we bring this mission to life by highlighting voices, technologies, and ideas shaping the future of perception and autonomy. And you can always reach me at jennifer@circleoptics.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Blue Sky. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future guests. Thank you for joining us.